Hello and welcome back to Suspended Fanimation. I'm your host, Dennis Patholkas, and tonight I'm reviewing The Passage, Season 1, Episode 1, and it's just titled Pilot is what it's called here. So this, as we've already been having a few people, two people here right now in the chat, Pen Farm Girl talking about how familiar this all is, and it reminds me a lot of The Girl with All the Gifts that came out a couple of years back, and very familiar to that, as well as a few other things too. And it's sci-fi. It's on Fox, so it'll be canceled within the first year because it's sci-fi on Fox, and it's not a Marvel property. So there we go. With all the gifts, not all the gifts. It's all the gifts with a T at the end there. So as usual, spoiler alert, I am going to spoil the episode. If you haven't gone and seen it, go and see it, or you can stick around for the video however you want to do it, but this video will be up afterwards and you can comment down below in the chat. Yeah, Pen Farm Girl, it probably will be canceled because it is on Fox. I really don't have any hope for anything that's original or sci-fi or anything like that on Fox anymore, or Sci-Fi Channel for that matter. So that's why Deadly Class has me very, very worried. So we open up with this girl, Amy Belafonte, talking about who she is and how basically the world is ending and how she remembers how it all started. And that it started also with two lifelong friends out in the woods looking for a 250-year-old man that they've heard rumors about. Sorry, I don't mean to bounce my camera around there. And so they're out in some, I guess, South American jungle. They don't really, oh, that's right, Ecuador, excuse me. They're out in Ecuador, and they have a guide that's bringing them and basically an army with them, armed army, to go look for this 250-year-old guy. And it's Dr. Jonas Lear and Dr. Tim Fanning. And they get led to this cave. They go inside there and they see some kid with some guy inside a cage. And the kid has opened up the cage and they're like, that's him. That's the guy. And Tim Fanning is the closest to this guy. And the kid starts screaming in Spanish to run and, get away because it's, he's a vampire. Yeah. And of course, they don't speak Spanish, which you think if you're going to Ecuador, you'd bring at least one person along who knew how to speak Spanish. Because even one of the soldiers there knows very limited Spanish. He says, I think it means run, kind of thing. And of course, this guy jumps onto Tim Fanning, rips his neck open, starts drinking his blood, and they start shooting the guy. And of course, one of the Dr. Lear grabs a stake and stakes the guy, actually, and kills him that way. Yeah, I know. I'm looking for logic, Pen Farm Girl. It's, I would think the CDC would actually have a little bit of that. Actually, I know people that have worked for the CDC or with them and things like that. And I know they actually have a lot more logic than that. So, yes. So he's got blood gushing out of his neck. They try and, of course, hold it on. And we see him in the hospital. And he actually makes a miraculous recovery. He pulls through and he starts talking to Dr. Lear, and at one point, Dr. Fanning's talking to him, and then all of a sudden he has blood coming out of his mouth. And then we get to, they say that this led to Project Noah with the CDC, and then we get 3 years later, we get a flash forward with Paul Mark Gosling there, and as Brad is his name. And he goes, and they're recruiting death row inmates to test this drug. They have a drug that supposedly they're testing, and they want these death row inmates to test them. So he is trying to recruit Anthony Carter, and Anthony Carter doesn't want anything of it. He's like, yeah, screw this. And his partner, Randy, ends up talking this guy, Anthony, into doing it. So, yeah, it was just kind of weird. Then we see in the CDC room that there's a Chinese avian flu that has a 12-hour incubation period. It moves really, really fast. 15,000 people have died. They say it's going to be about 3 months if the Chinese government can't contain it before it spreads to Europe and the rest of the world. So they have to accelerate the NOAA program. And of course, they're going to start losing all these safeguards and things like that they had in place and rush things forward because of this pandemic that's starting to happen. So one of the doctors says, you know what, I have an idea of what's going on. He goes, but we got to go down to the lab and take a look at it. So he brings everyone down there, and we see Dr. Fanning sitting inside this glass repository. His skin's all pale. His eyes are yellow. He's got veins sticking out of his head and all this kind of stuff. And he's catatonic, basically. He's in a vegetative state, if you will. And they're saying that he has no response, and that every time they tweak the formula, because they've been using his blood as the catalyst, if you will, of this virus, and they keep tweaking the formula, and they're testing on these death row inmates, and they have them all in these different cells. And they say, okay, each one has a longer and longer incubation time before they turn. And he said in this one here, and he shows us Shauna hasn't shown any outer symptoms of getting the pale skin or anything like that, but she's got the bloodlust. So it doesn't work completely. And so this one doctor ends up saying, oh, okay, I have an idea. It's aging. It has to do with neurons. And adults have less neurons than children. Children have billions of neurons, and they would be the best test subjects for this. So, yeah. So we're talking about child, experimentation at this point. And Dr. Major Sykes says, because you can't be talking about that. And of course, they're like, I've gone over all, she says, I've gone over all the equations later on, and he's right. We need to do that. We need to go with kids. And so she ends up talking to the Black Ops guy in charge, Clark Richards, and he says that he can find children that no one will miss, to bring them in. So, hey, Movie Fanobi. Yeah, I know it's late for you guys too. It's, that's the nature of the beast. They put this thing on at 9 o'clock and it ends at 10 o'clock your time. It's early for me, so, which was good. Good night, Movie Fanobi. So, we have the security guys saying that he can't, get a kid. Excuse me, now I just lost my place there for a second. So we see Amy. Amy actually eating food in a fast food place. She's by herself. We think that she doesn't have her mom at this point. She does, actually. Her mom was just a drug addict, and her mom ends up actually ODing when she's 10 years old. So now she's actually on her own completely. So she's going to be the one, as she puts it, the girl no one will miss. And the CDC, of course, is going to go after her at this point. Or Clark's men are going to go after her. So Anthony Carter is brought in to the Colorado site to be tested on, and goes down in the elevator. And we see Clark and Brad talk. And they're old Afghanistan fighting buddies and all this kind of stuff. And Brad works for Clark, of course, at this point. And he says, I need you to do something. He goes, you might not like it. And he gives him the assignment. He goes, okay, I'm in. And so Brad goes to go pick up Amy, because Amy is now in a foster care home. And, of course, these horrible foster care homes. And she's fighting other kids because they're taking her book, which has her, her mom inscribed book to her. It's A Wrinkle in Time. And she wants it back. And Brad and Randy show up, and they have a story that her mom got infected with something. That's the reason why her mom died. And they want to bring her back to the CDC so she can get checked out to see if she has that same kind of virus or not. It's a bullshit story, of course, but that's the only way they're going to get her out of there. So Amy, of course, goes upstairs to go pack, and she runs out. She jumps out the window, takes a run for it. Randy ends up tackling her and then smacking her in the head as Brad brings the car by, and they throw her in the back of the car as about 10 people witness all of this, and of course call the cops and things like that, and they take off. And Brad ends up, stopping the car, hitting Randy and telling him that if he ever hits the girl again, that, he'll do worse to him. Checks her out, and then calls up Clark and says, you know what, we've been made. Shit's going to hit the fan pretty soon. We need to get the hell out of here. So they're going to, of course, switch cars. They've already, you know, they've already done that. Now at this point, they've, you know, switched out cars. Everything moves kind of fast, and we don't get a sense of time in this thing. That's the one thing I have to say about this episode is they rushed everything in the pilot, so you don't really get a good sense of time. So we have them riding along in the car. She gets car sick. He pulls over, puts her in the front seat. He has a little heart to heart with her, with Amy, Brad and Amy, and they kind of get, you know, they're bonding, if you will. And of course, Randy is never going to bond with her at this point. Dr. Lear at this point comes down and he's trying to talk to Dr. Fanning. He's trying to get him out of his vegetative state by playing him his favorite music, you know, foot massages, whatever, that kind of stuff. And one of the security guys comes down and says that he's been having dreams of Dr. Fanning coming in and talking to him and telling him that, you know, he wants to go home. And he's not the only one. Other people are having dreams of Dr. Fanning as well. And Dr. Lear kind of, you know, poo-poos it and says, "Oh, that's not, you know, nothing's going on. Yeah, you know, nothing. You're imagining things." And Fanning, you know, is we have Shauna. Clark comes down there, and Shauna is staring at him through the glass. And even though one of the security guards tells him, you know, she's been staring at you pretty hardcore, and he's like, "No, she's not." And he turns over and looks at her, and yeah, she's staring at him. And obviously he knows who she is. They have some kind of connection since before this. It's probably the reason why he brought her into the program. We don't know what it is as of yet. Dun, 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 of course. Randy, at this point, they pull over to a carnival. Randy, Brad, and Amy, and he's going to take her to a carnival. And Randy gets pissed off and says, "What the hell are you doing?" He goes, "Do we have a problem here?" And he goes, "She's cargo. Nothing more than that. Just cargo. We need to get to Colorado and screw this stuff." And Brad just tells him, "You know what? We'll meet up in about an hour. Go and do whatever you're going to do. And I'm going to take her to the carnival." There, he teaches her how to shoot so she can win this giant stuffed unicorn. And they bond a little bit more. And so Randy comes over and goes, "Okay, it's time to go." And he goes, "But I got to hit the head." So he goes, "Let me go first." So Randy goes into the bathroom, and we see Brad. He says, "Okay, sit down over here for a second." He goes, "I'll be back." And of course, they start playing the dramatic music. They played some rock music that they got the rights for. He goes in, knocks out Randy, and then grabs her and goes, "Do you trust me?" And she goes, "Yeah, I trust you." Because he wasn't expecting her to trust him at all. And they take off. He says, "There are going to be bad guys that are after us on the run. You know, you got to do what I say," that kind of thing. But don't be scared. Also, in all of this, we find out he has an ex-wife, or maybe not an ex-wife. We don't know for sure if he just abandoned her or what happened. And that he had a little girl at some point too, because they were talking on the phone, and it's going to be Eva's birthday. And she goes, "It's been 3 years." So we don't know if Eva is actually dead, alive, what's happening. And she says, "It's not your fault. You know, some guy asked me to marry him." And she goes, "Should I do it?" And he goes, "What do you want me to say?" And she says, "Well, I want you to come home and tell me, you know, not to do it." And he's like, "Yeah, I can't do that," kind of thing. And yeah, just all kinds of weirdness. There's a lot going on in this first episode with not a lot of context. So it's kind of a weird, it's not paced properly. I'll just say that much. It's not really paced all that well. So Clark gets the news about Brad, with Shannon staring at him, you know, through one of the monitors over the back of his head and everything. And of course, they're going over, you know, how Brad is such a badass. He's got silver stars, and he's got all this kind of training. And it was just really, really weird. Like I said, the timing and everything. And then Brad takes Amy to the river and says maybe it's a nice place for her to say some nice things about her mom, because to get all the poison out, because she kept calling her mom a stupid drug addict and everything. And then she starts reminiscing about all the good stuff that her mom did. She cries, gets it out of her system. They bond a little bit more. Da, 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 da. And Carter gets examined by Dr. Fanning. It's kind of a weird thing. And Dr. Fanning's telling Carter about, because Carter asks what's going to happen to him. And he says, oh, it's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad. And then when it gets bad, it's going to get worse. And he has blood coming out of his mouth. And Carter wakes up with a start and he's on the exam table. And we see Fanning down in his cell smiling. So he's obviously, reaching out with his mind and, talking to people through with his mind, except for Dr. Lear. Everybody except for his friend, Dr. Lear. Chained fast. I don't know what you mean by that, Pen Farm Girl. Sorry. So Brad's picture ends up popping up on the TV saying that, he's kidnapped the girl. And he calls up his ex on the payphone outside. And, of course, chained to the exam table. Thank you, Pen Farm Girl. Yeah, he was chained to the I forgot about that. Carter was chained to the exam table. So Brad ends up calling his ex-wife. And who's there, of course, but Clark. And Clark's there with 6 guys. And she's smart enough to actually talk to him in code, saying that, calling him a patient's name, but telling him everything that's going on. And he tells her that he loves her, and then he always has, and but he has to go. So just as he's about to pull out, he's in the car with Amy, and there's a cop sitting off on the side, and he's like, "Yeah, I got to do it. I got to give myself up." And she goes, "Well, why?" And that's what we're all asking too, is why? At this point. And he says, "Well, if I get your face out there onto the TV, they won't take you. It'll be better for you. All this stuff." And so, of course, he turns himself in. He goes to the police station, and the first thing the cops do is they call up, the CDC, the federal guys, of course, and Clark sends his guys out first. It wasn't, they're not sending out the reporters or anything like that. And Brad, of course, realizes what an idiot he is and what a mistake he made. And he tells Amy to go get the keys to go unlock him. Yeah, so she just walks over, grabs the keys, and he unlocks himself. Of course, the sheriff comes over, says, "Hey, what are you doing?" Points the gun at him. He gets the gun, and who shows up but Clark's guys who plug the sheriff. And he fights them, of course. Brad fights the guys. And as he's getting Amy out the back door, who shows up but Clark? And he wants to know what Clark wants with the girl. She won't tell him. And he gets shot in the process. Brad gets shot. Runs outside. They get into the cop car. They jump inside and drive away. And there we go. So that's pretty much it for the first episode. Not the greatest of things. I'm trying to think. I mean, of course, the one thing that this reminded me of course, was the girl with all the gifts, plus a couple other things as well thrown in. It's maybe the second episode's going to be better. I don't know. Hopefully. It just seems kind of meandering at this point, and they're throwing too much into the first episode instead of, we're getting a story that's being told by someone after the fact, and then we're going back, and it just didn't seem right. So, hey, Morks, sipping some rum and filthy news. I'm not, nor am I early. I arrive when I mean to. Yes, I am what I am, but yeah. It has promise. The filthy news says I liked it. Yeah, I like I said, I usually give about 4 episodes before I can tell whether or not it's going to be good or not. And it's still too early to tell, but still, it really needed, that first episode was just kind of clunky. But then again, all pilots are pretty much clunky, except for Future Man. That pilot was actually pretty damn good, I have to admit. And pretty well polished. So, let me see what else I've got here. Slurmy Scott says, I've resigned my nerd membership. I am now a geek. Congratulations. And of course, Mufinobi left for the night. Pen Farm Girl. Nice. All right. So, Mork says, speaking about Future Man, I'm on the Truffle Dome. The Truffle Dome is an awesome episode. Yes, it is. Yes, Future Man is an exception and exceptional. You're right, Farm Girl. It is a bit different. It's a different animal. It really is. And speaking of which, that's what I'll be doing tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll be doing episode 2 of season 2 of Future Man. So if you like what you see, an elephant, truffle, and elephant. I get it. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button down here. Also hit the like button if you will. Also, you can hit the bell so you can maybe get a notification of when I got a new video up. I guess some people didn't get notified that I had a new video up, even though I started this about an hour ago that I put it up ready to go. Slurmy, you saw another review of The Passage and they hated it. I can see it. It's like I said, there's a lot of people out there that are hate watching some stuff, and a lot of people don't have any patience for stuff. It's got to be good right away, right out the gate. Otherwise, you know. Pen Farm Girl says, I checked the schedule and knew what you planned. Thank you, Pen Farm Girl. Yes, I do have a schedule up on both my website, suspendedfanimation.com, and on Facebook, on my Facebook page. Just look for Suspended Fanimation. You can find it there. I am also on Twitter and on Instagram as well. I'm everywhere. So again, if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. Also hit the like button or the dislike button if you don't like it. Hit the bell. And you can also, you're going to see a little thing that says subscribe up here and probably a video of what best suits you out of my library over there as well. Other than that, you guys can catch me tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Future Man Live, episode 2 of season 2. And they put in a lot in this episode, but I think it's better than being too slow. I'm in it for more. Nice, Pen Farm Girl. Yeah, with that, I'm going to leave you guys. Don't forget to subscribe, look at the videos, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, you may find yourself in the middle of a remake of a zombie or vampire. We don't know exactly what they're going to be calling these people yet. Good night, everybody.